My name is Tobias. In the history of Earth, I may be the strangest creature ever to live. I mean it. You have to look at mythology to find anything as weird as I am. Maybe the griffin, which was supposed to be half lion and half eagle, or the centaur, half human and half horse, or whatever. But those are myths. I am reality. I don't know, Tobias. I think you're overselling yourself. It could be worse. You could be a homosexual, or a redskin or something. A faggot, Indian, half-bird, half-man. Now, if that's not first in line for the Spanish hold, I don't know what is. Oh, God bless the Empire. The following video was created under the express permission of the Empirical Media Department by an officially licensed artist. All opinions expressed have been approved by the state. And thus we reach the end of this Animorphs retrospective, a rather abrupt end thanks in part to the incarceration of authors Catherine and Theodore Grant shortly after the publication of this book. As previously discussed, while Animorphs had originally appeared to be a pro-Empire young adult series with the concept of the mind-controlling Yeerks as a metaphor for damaging socialist ideals, with each additional book in the series, it was becoming clear that the Grants were using subtle manipulation of ideas and subliminal messages encoded in the corner flipbook portions of the book to promote socialist and pro-homosexual propaganda. This was all confirmed after a raid at the Grant household discovered notebooks outlining their subversive plans for the series, which would have included a book in which the character Cassie was trapped in the forest with a Yeerk and began to see the Yeerk's ideals in a positive light. The idea behind this was that it was to be published after a book called Animorphs 31 in the Time of the Garden of Eden, a heavily pro-Catholic piece in which the Animorphs used alien technology to travel back in time and stop evil aliens known as the Makora from altercating historical events from the Bible, including burning down the Garden of Eden, sinking Noah's Ark, and murdering Jesus as a child. The Makora were supposedly a stand-in for South American primitives, and between the pro-Catholic and the rightful upheaval of the Makora, it would have made the book so pro-Empire that it would allow the Cassie/Yeerk book to slip by the censors undetected. Also found in the Grant home were pamphlets concerning terrorist organizations, pornography, including homosexual pornography, and coded letters to and from other incarcerated propaganda authors, including R.L. Stine and J.K. Rowling. Catherine Grant received a lifetime sentence in the labor camps, while Theodore Grant was executed the following year by hanging. As for Animorphs itself, once news got out about its true nature, all personal copies were recalled and burned. The only copies known to exist now are archived copies with the Empirical Media Department, as examples of subliminal propaganda. And it's from those copies that I've been creating these educational and admittedly humorous videos. So the book opens rather oddly, with Tobias flying around and discussing his emotional state. Is the glass half empty or half full? That's always what they ask, to see if you're an optimist or a pessimist. Am I some kind of hideous freak of nature, a twisted concoction of mismatched parts? Or am I something new and wonderful? Well, depends on the day. Depends on whether I'm with Melissa, wanting to make her happy, wanting to hold her hand, wanting to be able to take her to a movie and a burger afterwards like any other guy can do with a date. Maybe even hold her hand, maybe kiss her, maybe... Yeah, at times like that, the glass is half empty. But there are other times. Times when the sun is high and hot, when the cumulus clouds are like gigantic mountains floating through a blue sky. Times when the warm air billows out beneath my wings and I barely have to flap, and all of a sudden I'm so high, so totally, absolutely free. Free in a way I never was as a human. Free to soar and soar, alone, nothing but the sound of the wind ruffling across my feathers. And on those days, the glass is spilling over. Notice how completely personal these thoughts are, with no mention towards the glory of giving to the Empire. Now, of course, we all have moments of weakness where we put ourselves first, so it's not unrealistic. But knowing what we know now about the Grants, I think it's very telling. Tobias flies to Cassie's barn for a meeting, once they shoo away Cassie's slave girl, of course. It seems that the Yeerks have developed a new group, something very different from the Sharing, something aimed towards troops heading for the war in Brazil. Now, this book was a little badly timed in that the 1999 Brazilian war effort had been completed 2 months prior to the book's publication, but if this was this book's only problem, that would easily be forgiven. We, of course, wiped out those jungle rats and officially claimed Brazil as territory for the Empire. I've been there. They have some really nice cleaned-out resorts. But then there's this continuing issue of whether or not Cassie is for or against the war, which gets Jake wondering if he should turn Cassie in as a traitor. And that's when the Drode shows up and shatters the illusion. Holy shit, I cannot stress how bizarre reading the first couple of chapters of this book were for the first time. Kay Applegate writes this alternate universe completely straight, as if the books had always taken place there. Tobias mentions Melissa Chapman, and you wonder, hey, what's he talking about? Was that a publication error? And then they gradually bring in things like slaves, the Empire, the fact that Pong is apparently this new thing, Rachel being in a re-education camp, that Marco's mother is alive, the war in Brazil, and you're just reading it going, what the fuck is going on? Ultimately, this is the book's best trick, something simultaneously fun and unnerving. And while it could be argued that the alternate history presented is so over-the-top evil as to be comical, but credit needs to be given to Applegate for holding back on the details as long as possible, and putting the brakes on things before it overstays its welcome. Simply put, while I wouldn't credit this book as the best time travel book in the series, this is the single best time travel moment. As for the rest of the book, So yeah, the Drode shows up and the Animorphs switch back to their normal, non-fascist personalities, Melissa being replaced by Rachel and taking a bow from the series as a whole. Bye, Melissa. The Drode explains that all of this was caused by a Yeerk, formerly Visser Four, the one leading the invasion of the Lyran homeworld. Remember the Lyrans? Neither did Applegate. Anyway, the demoted Visser Four somehow discovered the Time Matrix, which you may remember being buried in the infamous construction site by Elfangor. He somehow figured out how to work it and managed to change history to try and make Earth easier to invade for the Yeerks. Well, the Ellimist and Krayak aren't very pleased about this, and after a lot of long debates over how to handle it, they've come to an agreement. Since they can't get a hold of Darian Lambert, they'll allow the Animorphs the temporary ability to follow Visser Four through time and stop him from changing history at the price of one of the Animorphs dying. Well, that's kind of a bum deal. Cassie and Marco both realize that the Animorph in question will probably be Jake, since he's the leader, he was the first to encounter Krayak, and he was the one responsible for crippling the Howlers, so the two of them make a silent pact to try and keep Jake safe. However, this proves difficult when the first time jump happens and the Animorphs find themselves scattered around 15th century France in the Battle of Agincourt. Now, this isn't a history book, so we only have the Animorphs' own personal knowledge of history to determine where and when we are. And this time there isn't some big expert in the team like Tobias was in Megamorphs 2. But for this discussion, what you need to know is that the Battle of Agincourt was a battle in the 100 Years' War in which the vastly outnumbered English army, led by Henry V, kicked France's ass, thanks largely to the utilization of newer, more powerful bows. Rachel and Cassie end up on the French side of things just before the battle starts. They run right into some men in armor who push them around for a little bit until Rachel just gets fed up, morphs elephant, and pounds one of them into the mud. That's when the rest of the team shows up, and Jake isn't too pleased and gets the knight out of there. Really gotta wonder what the knight was thinking during all of this. That fortune teller was right. My family is cursed. That fucking elephant will haunt the Hawk name till the end of time. Well, the Animorphs are pretty clueless about what to do. They manage to figure out that this is some battle between the France and English, and they figure out the year, but they have no idea what war this is, or who eventually won and how, and as such, they're not sure what Visser Four is trying to accomplish, or even how to find him. Hey, that's it! Jake, Rachel, everyone! These guys are all dirty and lice-ridden and pockmarked. It took you 3 hours to notice that? Rachel demanded. You're a genius, Marco. Well, duh, Rachel. Guess who wouldn't be all skanky? Skanky? Wait, so Henry V's army was full of sluts? Well, the Animorphs morph bird and start scouting around for the one non-whoring soldier, eventually spotting him among the English archers. Speaking of which, that whole battle thing has finally started, and the arrows are flying, with the Animorphs right in their trajectories. Marco and Rachel get injured and fall, and when Cassie tries to get them in horse morph, she ends up injured and falls on top of them, slowly suffocating them. The remaining Animorphs see Visser Four about to take a shot at Henry V, and Tobias, who's fretting about Rachel, is the only one who can stop it in time. "Tobias, the guy's getting ready to shoot," Jake said. "I can see him." "Tobias, I cannot get there in time," Axe said with infuriating calm. Both of them alike. All Jake and Axe cared about was this stupid mission. I could see Rachel and Marco, half crushed by Cassie's horse body. No, wait, not crushed. They were shielding themselves beneath her. They'd be crushed, yes, but maybe not killed. If I could get into the woods, morph to polar bear, come back, break through... Jesus, what is it about time travel that turns Tobias into such an asshat? Screw the space-time continuum. This is about what I want. Well, Tobias finally gets his head in the game and manages to snag Visser Four's arrow out of midair, which clues Visser Four that the Andalite bandits have somehow followed him here, and he makes a run for it. While Axe pursues, Jake morphs a horse and Tobias a hork-badger, and a 7-foot spiky lizard man definitely gets attention in these superstitious times. Axe gets a similar reaction when he chases Visser Four to a church and is forced to demorph right outside. Tobias joins him in trying to break into the church, which goes down as the biggest you-had-to-be-there moment in history. Alas, the Animorphs don't get to Visser Four in time, and he activates the Time Matrix, and the Animorphs find themselves scattered along the Delaware River in 1776. Yep, it's that famous George Washington crossing the Delaware scene, in which George Washington led a small contingent of 2,400 men across the river to launch a surprise attack on the Hessian forces. Visser Four's goals in this time are very clear. He's going to warn the Hessians and prevent Washington's victory. Rachel, find Washington. He must be the target. Stay on him. Whatever you do, protect George Washington. Well, there's 3 words you never thought you'd say, Marco said with a low laugh. Very much to the book's credit, they don't glamorize these events. The crossing isn't the epic Emmanuel Lutez painted affair we've come to hold up as American iconography. No, the actual crossing was a dark, cold, dreary affair on shitty boats full of grumpy, uncomfortable soldiers. Everyone takes their places. Marco and Jake get onto one of the boats, while Rachel takes the air and owl morph to keep an eye on things. Axe and Tobias position themselves on the other side of the river, and Cassie morphs Dolphin in case Black Manta should show up. However, despite their best precautions, the warned Hessians still manage to surprise the crossing soldiers and fire upon them. Marco narrates. 50, 60, 100 explosions. 100 balls, flying, singing through the air. Thunk. The man sitting in front of me fell back. His head dropped on my lap. "Ah!" I yelled. Thunk. An oar was blown in half. Thunk. A hole appeared in Jake's forehead. Rachel narrates. Jake fell straight back without a twitch or a movement. Simply collapsed. A puppet whose strings had been cut. Marco lunged across the boat to grab him. I saw the hole. It was centered in Jake's forehead. The back of his head was gone. And thus, Jake has died. Again. And really, this was the best way they could have executed the whole one of the Animorphs is going to die things, by having it be quick and sudden, with no real build to it, in a situation that is no more or less dangerous than any other situation the Animorphs might have faced in any other book, brought about by the Animorphs' failure to assess a situation, and with quick but efficient and gruesome detail. Before anyone can really comprehend what just happened, Jake's body falls into the boat and disappears into the river. Everyone is emotionally destroyed by this, and in a fit of anger and confusion, Axe in Andalite form storms the Hessian camp and kills one of their officers in hopes of stopping the attack. However, Axe ends up feeling a bit morally bankrupt for doing this, and frankly I'm not sure I understand why Axe's conscience clenches up more for this incident than all the other times he's killed Yeerks in their host bodies. Axe comments on how this really wasn't the officer's fault, but it was a necessary kill in order to preserve the timeline as much as possible. On a moral standpoint, is that all that different from killing a peaceful hork-badger whose body is being controlled by Yerk. The killing of someone who is used and is innocent to the crimes being committed by another force. I'll have a little more to say about that later.